Good afternoon. Thank you, Heather. How many supervisors or managers do we have in the audience? So you all probably have experienced some turnover over the last couple of years and people going other places. And so I'm sure if you had some key people to leave, you had to start from maybe ground zero. And or if you have some people leave, you're like, what the hell am I gonna do? They knew everything. So we try to avoid that. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. I'm not going to repeat some of the things Heather mentioned, but to give you some context of Fort Worth, we are about 30 miles west of Dallas. Our Department of Neighborhood Services not only has the HUD programs, but we have some other social service programs. We're a little over 200 employees, and right now we have about 160 FTEs. And in our normal budget, federal funds, it's about 35 million, and then we get another 11, 12 every year out of our general fund. So we went from that to over 150 million in the span of less than 2 years. So there was a big change. We did hire a few additional people, but for the most part, we administered our programs with the existing staff. So in order to do that, I look at it as a sports team, you have to develop a deep bench. And I do have a couple props here today, and they're sitting over there, Sharon Berkeley and Terrence Jones. They didn't know I was going to call on them, but I'm going to use them as examples of how we kind of develop our staff. So as you know, as a manager or supervisor, I always tell our folks, it's people first and then the money. So you worry about taking care of the folks that you supervise and giving them opportunities to advance, and I think they'll do what you need them to do to get the money spent. If you think all the time about how we get the money out, I think people sometimes view you as not thinking of them and more just the work. And I think we've tried to create a culture where people want to work in neighborhood services. They have opportunities to move around, and I'm going to use those two in a little bit and tell you how they've moved around. Another thing that Heather mentioned, we do a lot of things with technology and dashboarding and holding people accountable. All of our programs are in some type of system. If you pick up one of those flyers from Neighborly, you'll see Terrence is the poster child for Neighborly. He's on the cover for the one that says Fort Worth. So he has used that as an opportunity to grow in our organization, and it's led him to do some other things as well as sharing. So dashboarding, reporting, interim roles, we've gone through a little bit of a reorganization, and so we've used that as an opportunity to match people's skills with other types of jobs. I think that's helped in developing their capacity. She mentioned cross-training. We do that in a lot of our projects. And then also, if there are any special projects that you have, use that as an opportunity to give people some other experience. Another thing that was mentioned, we spend a lot of time on developing our employees. What do they want to do? What are they good at? Have you done anything to develop some plans with your employees as far as professional development? How do those goals line up with the organization? How can an employee grow in your organization? So those are some of the things that we focus on. As I mentioned, we are going through a reorganization. We've had an opportunity to move some employees around. I think that's helped as far as developing our bench and also having a succession plan. Performance management, we do have employees, and I'm sure you all do as well. They're doing things that are not necessarily in their job description. It's changed over time. You need to periodically go back and take a look at that, whether HR comes and does some type of analysis to see if those duties match up with what they're doing. If not, that can sometimes lead to individuals getting a little bit stressed and depressed, and that leads to them leaving and going other places. So we regularly take a look at what programs, what duties they're doing, how does that fit with the job, and if it doesn't fit, then we have that reevaluated. Here's one I think is really important. I previously worked for the city of Little Rock, and we had some turnover. all your employees, do you know or are you documenting exactly what they do on a day-to-day basis? Because what's on the job description isn't necessarily how to get the job done. So there, I had employees actually, if they were out, somebody could actually sit in and know basically what they were doing. That goes to the cross-training part of it. So we have them basically have their own little operations manual to describe what their day-to-day duties are. Another one on their performance evaluations. There are some organizations that don't take that as seriously. Fort Worth, we do. So employees know how they're performing. That's an opportunity for us to visit with them on other things that they may be interested in. And so we use that tool to help build their capacity. And do you have a succession plan in place? We just lost an employee that had been there 20 years that was over our compliance department. She had felt that she was indispensable, but all that whole time I had been talking to employees and talking to her as well, train some other employees, expose them to different things. And so we've been able to fill that void. Haven't filled a position yet, but we have other employees that were able to step in and continue doing what she had been doing. I mentioned accountability earlier. As a manager or supervisor, you're responsible for setting the culture, and the employees are responsible for fulfilling what your vision is. So I put on here accountability. So all those tools that we talked about and Heather mentioned, evaluations, dashboarding, reporting, that's how you hold your employees accountable. And that's how you're able to see where they're a good fit. We recently moved an employee from one area to another. They've thrived once they were moved, but they indicated that they weren't a good fit in the job they were in. So by moving them, we were able to have a more productive employee, which helped the overall department. So I mentioned capacity and development plans. I mention use your evaluations. That's one of the important tools. Be able to identify employees that want to do other things, their strengths and weaknesses, and exactly what do they want to do in the organization. I mentioned my props, so now it's time for y'all to see my props. So if y'all stand up, the two props over here. So Terrence and Sharon both worked in compliance. Sharon was a senior planner. Terrence was a senior contract specialist. Y'all can sit down now. I want to use him as an example. Terrence, when we got the emergency rental assistance program, and we had a vacancy in our leadership, I put him in an interim role as a manager, and he took on the task of implementing our emergency rental assistance. So we received about $68 million, then we got another $10 million from the county. And so he was able to train employees, particularly on neighborly software. He worked with a lot of our partners. He came with a lot of creative ideas. So all of that was in an interim capacity. And also in that division, we do it's called our Neighborhood Empowerment Zone. It's a tax abatement program. We have a general fund program called Neighborhood Improvement Program. So all of those things were going on that he was able to assume those duties. And during that interim period, we were able to evaluate how he performed. And so recently, I guess probably 30 days ago, he got named as a permanent manager in our organization. So here's someone. And I use that as an example because he was in a supervisory level, but he was only supervising maybe one person. And so here's this big program with millions and millions of dollars that we had the confidence to put in him and oversee that, and it was another way of developing. So he has a career track. He's proven to our city manager's office that he's able to perform. We've committed and spent most of that money in record time. So that's another way of identifying talent, as mentioned on step one. critical jobs or positions, which that was one, and then we have a succession plan because he's shown that he can do that. Sharon as well, we had a compliance and planning division that was combined. We've separated that, so now she's one that's heading up our planning part. So all the stuff, the reporting with HUD and our action plan and all that. So she heads up all of that, and she works with all our nonprofits on public service contracts. So she also has moved on, and we're in the process. She doesn't know it yet, but her job will be, pay will be increased and her position changed shortly. So we're just waiting on approval from HR. Now, she argued with me about what the title, but she got more money. But I'm like, hey. So here you see where it talks about talent development. I use them as an example just to talk about talent development. It has to be deliberate. So just like you're talking about diversity and inclusion, which is, a hot button topic in a lot of organizations, you have to be intentional about that. You have to be intentional about developing talent. Evaluate the complexity of the talent in the organization. So I've been the director there almost 3 years. And so one of the things I did, I got a copy of everyone's resume in the organization. Everybody, from administrative assistant all the way up to assistant directors. And you may ask, why would the director want that? Well, as a director, you're the one responsible for the culture in the organization, the morale in the organization. You can't necessarily count on division managers to identify talent. I make a point to try to visit employees throughout the organization. Sometime during the month, I try to get around and meet folks and talk to them, ask them about their jobs. So that's one of the things I use, the resumes and getting to know them. And I found out things that I didn't know. I have an administrative assistant. She's working on a graduate degree. She's a pilot. I had no idea that she was flying planes. We have an aviation department in Fort Worth. So she may not be able to continue to benefit our department, but she has an interest in aviation. So there may be some opportunities that she can move on. So it's not just your department. Look for talents they have that they may can benefit the whole overall organization. Identify a pool of high potential talent. We said targeted learning experiences. I've been to several of these NCDA national conferences, and I see the same faces a lot of times. Are you providing opportunities for some of your junior staff to come and take advantage of some of the trainings? I mean, directors, assistant directors, you don't have to go every year. Send some other folks. And I see some of y'all like, this is a trip for me. They can't go. They don't know what goes on in the hospitality suite. So different supervisors. I didn't know he acted like that. But allow them to go. If it's not here, some other types of training. I was in a session, I guess it was yesterday, we talked about NDC, National Development Council. Now that's online, but that's an excellent training for folks that's doing underwriting and learning about real estate development. So it may be a little expensive, but make that in your budget so they can take advantage of that. Create a pipeline of talent for the organization. I think we talked about that with these two examples I mentioned. And then share talent across the organization, which I mentioned about the employee that has an interest in aviation, that she may be able to transition over to that department. So I don't know if you all are familiar with this or seen it's an old tool called the 9-box grid. And basically it's a tool you can use to evaluate your employees' talent. You can see the bottom left, you see the two axes, performance and potential. Low performance, low potential. Well, those are ones you need to tell them fish or cut bait. It's basically doesn't appear to be much hope. No potential, low performance. The upper right-hand corner, you see high performance, high potential. Those are the employees you want to keep around. I mean, that's part of your succession planning. And then you see some with low performance, high potential. So you need to be able to spend some time with them and try to motivate them to do better. They have the potential, but they may not be motivated to do better. It may be the job they're in, it may be some of their coworkers. You need to look and find out. But this is just a little tool you can use to evaluate employees and see which ones have some potential to really grow in your organization. That's it. Victor Brevity. Thank y'all.